On a wet, foggy day in England, there was a little girl standing on the side of the street as she was pondering about crossing that street. And you can only imagine the wet, muddy street full of cabs and trucks and buses. And she was afraid to cross over that street. And she would go up and down the sidewalk of the street and look around where is the best place to cross over that street. And then she started looking into the faces of people who would walk across the street, who would go up and down the sidewalk. And she would walk to the person, look straight into the face of that person, and she saw all kind of faces. There was faces of those strangers who were passing down the street. Some of them were careless. Some of the faces were angry. Some of the faces was busy. And she was looking for a while around in every stranger who would pass by. And suddenly, she saw one elderly gentleman coming down the street. He had white hair, and looking in his face, she found something that she could ask him, and she asked him, "Please, sir, would you help me to cross over the street?" The old man, he helped a young girl to cross across the street, and that gentleman's name was Lord Shaftesbury. He was well known at that time, Lord of England, who received lots of honors from different governments around the globe. He received lots of honors from his own city, great city of London. The royals would shake his hand and give him honors and medals in recognition for all the achievements he have done for the country and the world. But in his memories that he shared, he said the greatest compliment that he ever received in his life was when this little unknown girl singled him out in a crowd of London street and dared to trust him, stranger, that was to protect and assist her. That moment made impression for him for the rest of his life. You know, lately, looking in the world that we are living in, I often ask myself a question. Whose hand am I holding today? Who can I trust? Is that going to be a church leaders? Is that going to be country rulers, politicians? Who am I going to trust today? Who are we can find as a person who we can trust, who we can give a hand to lead us across the busy streets of this world? Because the situation that we are living today is dissimilar. We are in the middle of this busy world that is ready to distract and snatch us and kill us. And we need somebody who would lead us across one last stretch until we enter the heavenly gates. Today, we have lots of distractions in this world, yeah? You just read the news. COVID, vaccines, politics, all kind of topics will dominate the airtime or your time to preoccupy your attention just to distract you from most important. The most important, whose hand are you holding today? You know, lately I caught myself for last week or even more following this news cycle about a missing young girl. I believe you all heard about 22-year-old missing a girl who took on a trip with her fiancé across the country. And next thing you know, she is missing, and he is back in Florida. And every day I was following that because every day there is a new development. Oh, he found the car found in Florida, and then lately she was found. The point is, I was thinking to myself, this is a prime example of somebody who trusts each other. They were sweethearts, yeah, from the high school, and they go together across the United States. The most something that they dream about in their life, enjoyable trip. She trusts her hand in somebody else's hand. Yeah, I'm not going to mention him by the name. And what is the end result? She's found not far away from here in Wyoming. Yeah, 22-year-old, life is gone. This is what choices we make often in our life, and we make one wrong choice to very familiar situation that can lead us to destruction. Today I wanted to go over some story in the Bible, and I don't know how much we'll cover in this study, but you can read this at home. I'll just give you the most important points of this study. This story is found in 2 Kings 6 and starts in verses 24. Chapter 6, verse 24. This is during the life of great prophet Elijah. Четвертое царство. This happens during the life of prophet Elijah. We know all the great miracles he made. He made sacrifice and prophets and everything. And we think after that the people of Israel, they said that we will follow the Lord, yes, and everything will be fine. There's lots of different stories that going on. And one of these stories, even after he had experience, remember, with blinding the Syrians and leading them straight to the center of the city, that's another topic for another study. But after that, couple years passes by, and then happens again. The Syrians come, and in verse 24 it says, afterward Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, mustered his entire army and went up and besieged the Samaria. He came with the whole army. Remember, before they would come here and get some crops, they get to another city, destroy and get some gold, and that was kind of raids. But now it's real war. They came to the capital city of Samaria. They besieged that city, and day after day, nobody could come out of the city or come in. All the produce, at that time there was no refrigerators, imagine yourself. There is no refrigerators, there is no stores of food, and everything is in the fields. Something you can store inside, maybe in cellars. And next thing you know, day after day, it wasn't an easy existence inside the city anymore. And verse 25 says, and there was a great famine in Samaria as they besieged it, until a donkey's head was sold for 80 shekels of silver, and 4th part of a cab of the dung for 5 shekels of silver. This is a very gruesome Bible verse. We're talking about clean Jews who would not eat unclean. Guess what? Was donkey a clean animal? No. Donkey was not a clean animal. And then not only they would eat a donkey's flesh, they would eat a donkey's head. Can you imagine what was the situation, what was going on inside the Samaria? And they would also sell what? Dove's dung. It's a stuff that nobody would imagine you can even consider palatable, yeah, to eat that as a part of your diet. But that's what they went down to. It was a gruesome situation. The reason we often think that God is hard on people of Israel, in Deuteronomy 28, 52 and 53, he said, they shall besiege you in your towns until your high and fortified walls in which you trusted come down through your land. And they shall besiege you in your own towns through all your lands which the Lord your God has given to you, and you shall eat the fruit of your womb, the flesh of your sons and daughters, whom the Lord your God has given to you in the siege and in the distress with which your enemies shall distress you. The prophecy was told. Based on what? If you follow my commandments, if you follow my words, I will bless you to generation and generation. But if you don't follow, this is the circumstances. We often find ourselves in a busy life, so distressed, so discouraged, that we blame everybody and everyone and ready to do almost things that not even thinkable about. But the reason we are there, I want to make sure that we remember today, is because of our own choices. Because we do not follow and trust His word. And as we skip down, you can read this story in every Bible verse. There is interesting things. But we skip down to verse 6:30. It talks about when the king heard the words of the woman, he tore his clothes. Because what happened just earlier there? Two women came to him and said, what? We have a problem. You need to judge among us because we had agreement. And what was that agreement? Do you remember? Do I need to share with you, or it's enough just to... It's horrible. We eat your son today, and then we eat my son tomorrow. And now we ate my son, and she hid her son. In short, how low, can you believe how low the Israelites are right here in this moment? Just few hundred years ago, there was another judge and another two women, remember? The King Solomon. That was a peak of the kingdom of Israel. And he judged wisely between two ladies who one child died and one was alive. And that was example for rest of the world. But here they are arguing, where is the child that we're supposed to eat today? People of God, how low they went. The words that they said to the king, actually in 6:26, remember it says, Hosanna Adonai Hamelech. Help my Lord, O King. That was expression that almost was used crying out to God Himself when she approached the king. And what does this king does in this moment when he's approached, and it shows you the human judgment in these situations. What does he do? This shows you perspective of humanity. When you're in trouble, that you actually got on yourself by your own actions, who do we blame for it? 2 Kings 6:31. And king said, after he tore his dress, he says, my God help me, may God do so to me and more also, if the head of Elijah, the son of Shaphat, remains on his shoulders today. What is the human solution? When we're in trouble, when we have no way out, we blame God and His prophet. We blame church, we blame pastors, we blame anybody but ourselves, yeah? And king said, I'll do this and this to myself if this prophet will survive. What was the problem with the prophet? They believed. What do you think was the problem? It's the same problem that will be for people of God in the end time. Because they remind wicked people of their sins. That's why John the Baptist was put to death. Okay? And what happens next in this? I'm trying to go through this story so we can get to the final points here. The prophet was sitting in the house, and he was, it says in verse 1 of 2 Kings 7, verse 1. Before that, we know that prophet even saw, and he says, the king already sent a killer against me, but he is coming afterwards. And then he comes in, and Elisha tells him, hear the word of the Lord. Thus says the Lord, tomorrow, about this time, a sah of the fine flour shall be sold for a shekel, and 2 sahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria. Can you believe that he would say such a prophecy at that moment? But that shows us how quickly God can turn around things in our life. Often we find ourselves in situations that we think, that's it. This is the end of the world, at least for me. There is no way out. There is no solution for this. The government is going to kill us. They will give us vaccine. They will make this and that. And people start preaching these doomsday prophecies because they don't know Christ. But God can make a change in literally 24 hours in the situations where there is no possible solution. And what happens in 24 hours? We know the interaction here with the general. One general said, the captain, he said, what? It's impossible, he doubted. And you will see with your eyes, prophet said, but you shall not eat. That's also, I wanted to focus today. We don't have time. Often we can preach about something all our life, but if we don't believe what we preach and we don't live what we the life of what we preach, we shall see with our eyes, but we will not taste it. We will see second coming of Jesus. We will see the reward of righteous, but we may not taste it. Just because we're sitting here in the church doesn't mean that we are already 100% reconciled with heaven. And then we find in this story 4 lepers. They found themselves also in hard situation. If people inside the city, they were struggling from the famine, these lepers, they were outcasts of society, so they were even worse. They could not go inside because they would get killed, and they cannot go out, they will get killed. So then they thought to themselves, if we go inside, we get killed, but there is no food. What is the reason to even go there? Everybody's dying and eating their own kids there. What is good? What good can we find there? So we will go out. And they go out, and we know the story very well. What they find. So they arose at twilight to go to the camp of Syrians. But when they came to the edge of the camp of the Syrians, behold, there was no one there. The camp was empty. For the Lord had made army of the Syrians hear the sound of chariots and horses, the sound of great army. So they said to one another, behold, the king of Israel had hired against us. And they think the Egyptians in Hattah is coming to revenge. So they run. They run for their life. They don't take anything with them. They leave everything behind them. And that morning, the prophecy of Elijah was fulfilled exactly to the word. Then the people, in verse 16, 7:16 says, then the people went out and plundered the camp of Syrians. So the fine flour, set of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 sets of barley was sold for a shekel, according to the word of Lord. So today, like I said, we went really fast over this story. Read at home from verse 24 in chapter 6 until the end of the chapter 7. This is wonderful experience that is written on the pages of Bible for our own hope. Because lots of people will try to scare us, and lots of circumstances will put us in situation that we think there is no way out. But if you trust in the word of the Lord, how long does it take him to make a difference in your life? How long? That moment. 24 hours in this instance to feed the entire city. Psalm 34 in verses 17 and 19 say, when the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them. Isaiah 40:8 also says, the grass withers and the flowers fades, but the word of our God will stand forever. If we believe God, if we follow him, no matter what the circumstances are around us, he will protect us and deliver us. May God help us to remember this. In the conclusion, I'll share with you a story of John Patton, who was a missionary in New Hebrides Islands. And one night, the tribes of that area, they surrounded their house or the mission station, and they decided to burn with fire while everybody was inside. So, they came very close to this house. They surrounded the house. They had torches in their hands, but they would do nothing. And the missionary and people who were helping him, looking through the windows, they see them there coming out of the forest, almost next to the property, but they would do nothing. They would stand there and walk around and stand and walk around, and then they disappeared. And they never set the house on fire. And then later, a couple years later, the chief of the tribe was converted to Christ. And remembering what happened to him, the Patton asked him, so what happened at that moment? Why would you came so close with fire? You were ready to set our, but you never concluded. And the chief said, yes, we were ready to kill you right there. But you had those 100 soldiers with their swords out, standing and walking around your mission station. And we just couldn't find a good approach to set your house on fire. That's what Lord is ready to do for every one of us. He's ready to send his angels to protect us no matter what situation we're facing in our life. Read in conclusion, read for yourself Psalm 40. In this psalm, David shares with us how he trusted the Lord and he waited patiently on him, and the result of that was deliverance. May God help us. Amen.